Hi guys, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. Like the intro said, it's about making the only bodice block you will ever need. Please guys, I hope you've watched the video of how to take your own measurements, because you're going to be needing a few of those measurements. I'll be leaving the link down below if you haven't. So to start, you're going to be needing these measurements: your bust, your waist, your hips, your back width, your chest width, your back length, and your hip length. So to start, you're going to be taking 1 inch at the border of the paper. That's going to be our start line. I'm sorry I'm marking it all the way, but you see I'm only going to be ruling it halfway because we're starting with the back. What you want to do is mark out your bust length. There are standard bust lengths for different bust sizes. So that's what I've written out there. From bust 32 to 36 inches, you use 8 1/4. For every bust size below 32, that's 31, 30, 29, you minus 1/4 of an inch. What I mean is, if it's 31 inches, it's going to be 8 inches. If it's 31 inches bust, it's going to be 8 inches for the bust length. If it's 30, it's going to be 7 3/4. So you minus 1/4 for every 1 inch as you're going below. Then for above, you add 1/4 for every 1 inch. So what I meant is that for 37, you add 1 inch. That's it will become, you add 1/4. So 37 will become 8 1/2. 38 will become 8 3/4. 39 will become 9. That's what I meant. So for mine is 8 1/4. So that's what I'm marking, because my bust size falls between 32 and 36. So I'm ruling that out. So the next I'm marking is my back waist length. Mine is 15, and so that's what I'm marking out right now. So whatever yours is, just mark that out. So now I'm marking out my hip length. My hip length is 8 inches. If you don't know how to find your hip length, please go and watch that video of how to make the perfect mini skirt. I'll be dropping a link below for that. I explained very well how to get your hip length. So now I'm marking out the bust line, the hip line, the waistline, and then the hip line. So the next thing I'm measuring is my neck width. I'm using 3 inches. It's pretty much standard. And then 1/2 inch above that 3 inch line and connect it with a curved ruler. Just draw a smooth curve. So now I'm going to mark out my shoulder line. Standard for a shoulder line is shoulder length is 1 1/2. So that's what I'm just make sure you always start from that border line. Just do it exactly the way I'm doing. So I'm marking out my shoulder line. Then next you want to get your back width. To get that, that's half of your bust line. So I'm folding that. You see how I did it from the beginning? I just fold the tape, and that's how I get exactly half of my back, exactly half of my bust line. So I'm marking that line out. That's my back width. Get your back width measurements, your chest width measurement plus 1 inches. Please, when you watch the video on how to take your own measurements, you understand what I'm trying to say. We're going to divide that into 2. So that's what I'm doing by folding the tape. Please guys, and I'm marking that on all 4 lines. You see that? I'm marking that. I'm going to connect all of them now. The shoulder line, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch on the shoulder line. Then on the bust line, I'm going to be marking half my bust divided by 4 plus an extra 1/4 inch for ease. So that's what I'm doing there, folding it into 4, marking it, and then a 1/4 inch for ease. So that's what I'm just marking there. So now I'm going to connect those 3. I'm going to connect those points with a curve. The mark on the shoulder line to the back point on the back width to the point on the bust line. So that's what I just did. You can see. Now I'm connecting that point on the shoulder line to my neck. The next thing is to get your dart line. To get your dart, you divide your chest width by 4. So I'm marking that measurement down on the bust line, the waistline, and on anywhere between the hip and the waistline. So I'm connecting all those points together. I'm rolling that line to create a straight line. I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch on either side of that line, 5 inches below. So that's the length of your dart. I'm connecting all those points together. Please don't forget 5 inches below the waist and the hip line, 5 inches. So I'm rolling that across just like that. Now I want to get our waist measurement. I'm going to be taking 1/2 inch away first of all to remove the bulge at the back so that the back can sit smoothly. I'm connecting that 1/2 inch point to the bust to the back width and onto the hip line. Please, do you see the way I did it, guys? Just do it exactly like that. That will take away the bulge from the back. Now I'm dividing my waist by 4. To place our measurements, I'm going to be starting from that half inch point on the waist. That's where your waist now starts from. So I'm going to be measuring that. I place on the dart. When I get to that, I'll hold that point, cross it over to the other end of the dart, and mark my waist measurement. That's how you are able to add the allowance for the darts onto your waist. So next thing, I'm measuring my hip divided by 4, and I'm marking that measurement. So I'm connecting those 2 points together on the hip and the waistline. And our back pattern is completed. So now we're going to be moving on to the front. To move on to the front, I'm going to be extending the bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. Those are the common constants that we'll be needing for both the front and the back. Please, if you're going to be using the same pattern paper to draft your back and your front, you need to make sure it's wide enough. It needs to be half of the widest part of your body, if that's your bust or your hip, half of that plus extra 1 inch for allowance. So next thing I'm marking is my neck width for the front. I'm using the same 3 inches that I used at the back. It has to be the same. Now for depth, I'm using the same 3 inches. That's how deep I want my neck to be. If you want yours to be deeper, but this is the general all-purpose block, so we are going to be using 3 for standard, and adjust that for any other style you want to use it for. So now I'm marking out my shoulder line. That's 1 1/4 inch, please. 1 1/4. That's standard, because the front shoulder is higher than the back. That's why we're not using 1 1/2. We're using 1 1/4. So next I'm marking my chest width line. That's 1 1/2 inches above the bust line. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm ruling that. I'm going to be writing that out. Chest width. This is shoulder. So on that shoulder line, I'm going to be dividing my chest width by 4. The way I got the dart for the back, the same thing we're going to be doing for the front. So I'm marking that line out, but this time I'm starting from the top, marking that on the shoulder width line. It's going to cut onto the bust line, onto the waistline, and in between the waist and the hip at any point there, just marking. So now I'm rolling that down. So now I'm going to be marking 3/4 of an inch, starting from that new point on the shoulder line, and then 2 3/4 from that point, just the way I did it. 3 inch, 3/4, and then 2 3/4, starting from that point. Please ignore that other line, I made a mistake, that's why I cancelled it. Then I'm going to be marking 1 inch below the bust line, 1 inch below, and I'm connecting all these lines together. Please just connect the way I'm doing it. Just watch this video, you can understand it if you watch the way I'm doing it. And then 1 inch below the 1 inch point after the bust line, just like I did the back dart, taking half an inch on either side of the line, 5 inches below, and I'm connecting all those points. Please, to the second 1 inch line, that's why I'm marking the second, not the first, and our front dart is ready. So now we're marking my shoulder for the front, standard 6.5 inches, starting from the beginning of the shoulder line. Mark that and connect that to the neck and rule all the way out. I'm going to be taking the back shoulder length, measuring that out, taking that, crossing it over to the front. Guys, just the way I'm doing it, I have to slow this part so you can see it. When I get to that point there, I'll hold that measurement, cross it to the other side, and then mark my back shoulder measurement. Please, the way I did, I'm marking our chest width measurement divided by 2. I'm starting from the beginning. When I get to that second line, yes, that point I'm touching, I'm going to hold that measurement and cross it over to the end of the other one, and then I mark my measurements out. Then I'm going to be connecting that to the point on the shoulder. I'll be dividing that line into 2, just the way I did, then get half an inch on that point. So now I'm going to be dividing my bust measurement by 4 and marking that on the bust line. When I get to that point, I hold it, cross over to the other dart, yes, and then I'll mark it. I'll be adding 1/4 of an inch for ease. That's what I'm doing now. So now I'm going to be connecting these 4 points to create my shoulder curve, my arm curve. So that's what I'm doing now, connecting all 4 of those points with a curved ruler. So now I'm going to be marking my waist. On the waistline, I'm going to be dividing my waist again by 4, just like we did at the back. Start from the beginning, get to the first leg of the dart, hold it, cross over to the other side and mark it, connecting those 2 points. What I mean by hold and move it is I'm trying to include the allowance on those darts into the measurements. So now I'm measuring my hip divided by 4 and I'm marking that on the hip line. So I'm connecting the hip point to the point on the waistline. And our front pattern is almost ready. So I'm just smoothing the curve on the waist because nobody has straight body like that. Our bodies are curved, and so that's why I'm marking that point. So now our pattern is almost done. I'm going to be removing the back so I can finish what I have to do for the front. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting it out. Just cut it out exactly the way I'm doing on your own. Follow those exact lines and cut them out. So our back is ready. Time for the front. Now it's time for the front. I want to remove the dart on the shoulder, move it and make it a bust dart. To do that, I'm marking 2 inches from the bust line and I'm connecting that to that point. Yes, just like the way I did. Just connect it the way I did. So now I'm going to be cutting out the shoulder dart. Just cut the way I'm cutting, not from the first line, the second one. So you see, I'm cutting it out. I'm going to be keeping that paper aside because I'm going to use it again. Now I have to join. I'm going to be using a sellotape to join it back together so that I can move it onto the side. So you have to be very careful in this part and take it slowly. Don't rush. No, guys, the lines don't have to meet at each point. You just have to make sure that you start joining it from the beginning up until the end. It should look like this. It doesn't have to be straight. It doesn't have to be the same at the top. As you can see, mine is irregular. So now I'm going to be opening that line on the side and we have automatically moved the dart from the shoulder onto a bust dart. So that paper I cut away before, I'm putting it under to fill in that space so it's not just an open space. I'm using a sellotape to hold that down, and then I'm going to be connecting those 2 points, yes, to fill in that space. And now I'm going to be cutting out my pattern. So just cut the way I'm cutting, cut those points. When I was cutting, guys, I forgot I had not joined the shoulder to the neck. So what you're going to do is that point, yes, just those 2 points, connect it back, and now you have your shoulder line again. So that's our new shoulder line. So that's what I'm cutting out. So I'm going to be cutting out the neckline, the hip line, and our bodice is ready. So guys, you can use these bodies for your tops, your dresses. I'm going to be teaching how to extend it to make it into a dress. So please guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you guys on the next one.